Littering. Ignore the flow. Smoke and walk. Ignore the barriers. Talking loudly. Big luggage in rush hour. T-shirts. Complaining about not being able to use a credit card. Hey guys and girls, it's Cathy Cat. On our street interviews in Tokyo, we have compiled now a list of 10 things that Japanese and foreigners hate about tourists in Japan. So let's see what you need to avoid when you come. Number 10, cutting in line. Almost in every street interview, Japanese people will say they most dislike foreigners who go and cut in line. In Japan, there are a lot of people, especially in Tokyo, and you'll have to line up for certain things. One of the most important is lining up for the train. There is generally a little line on the ground when you look down, which will show which card you are going to enter. Behind that line is where people will line up in order to go on the train. Obviously, the first person at the front has a better chance of going in and getting a seat. And Japanese people are very polite, but around lining up and getting seats on trains, that's sometimes where the politeness stops. So you don't want to be the foreigner who cuts in line. People despise that with a passion, and foreigners who live in Japan and who've learned that will despise seeing tourists who do that. Stand in line. Do not cut in line. I know in some cultures, cutting in line, that's kind of okay. It's really not in Japan. You make yourself a lot of enemies, and I'm sorry, you're making everyone look bad who's also another foreigner, even though they try to, abide by the rules. So seriously, that's one thing you need to know. Number 9, littering. You might go, littering. I know in my country I don't litter. I would never litter. Some people are tempted to litter in Japan, and that's because there are barely any trash cans anywhere. In your country, there might be a trash can around the corner. In Japan, it's really hard to find them. You might end up going around with that little leftover bit of crepe and you don't know what to do with it. So people are tempted to throw it in the corner, or they see like a pile of trash that's already done by other tourists and they throw more trash on it because they think it's fine. It's not. It's really not. I had quite a lot of Japanese people, especially people from Harajuku, complain about the foreigners who leave their leftover food in areas and they destroy the whole Harajuku culture. So how can you go around that? My tip is to, usually at stations, there's a trash can. Try to find that. Usually around convenience stores, there's a trash can. Another thing is, if you had a drink from a store, you can sometimes go to that store and show them like you finished it from them, a drink or a crepe even. And in that store, if you bought it from that store, you can also ask them to take care of your rubbish if it's from that store. Now, what do you do if you have some other trash? For example, you go to the convenience store and, you walked around town, away from that convenience store and you have a little bit leftover things in your bag. You need to do what every Japanese person does. Put it in your bag, carry it home. Dispose of it at home. I know that's a pain. We have all to do it, but you need to do it. Do not litter. It looks really bad because Japanese people don't litter. 8. Ignore the flow. When you go to Tokyo and Osaka, you'll see that sometimes people will walk on the left side of street in one direction and they come back on the right side of street. That might depend on which area you are and might change. But for example, in Harajuku, Takeshita Dori, generally on the left-hand side is where you walk and on the right-hand side is people who come out of that direction. That is a thing you need to look out for because sometimes tourists will ignore that. They will go on the wrong side. They will break the whole flow. And because Tokyo is so busy and there's so many people, if you go into the wrong direction, it can actually really disrupt the whole flow of all the other people. Also, sometimes what I see is for a group of foreigners who totally seems to be very unaware of what's going on around them, and they stand somewhere right in the middle of a very busy street or a station and they block everyone's way. Japanese people won't say, hey, get out of the way, or, do something. They would, maybe in your country, people would definitely say something. In Japan, they don't say something, but they feel it. They're like, those foreigners are in the way. Those tourists. So don't be one of those tourists. Always be aware of your surrounding, be aware of the flow of people, and maybe find a way to stand on the side so you don't block other people's path. Everyone's busy. Everyone has to be somewhere. So make sure that you let the Japanese people and the people who live here do go on with the things that they're doing. Number 7, smoke and walk. Smoking on the streets of Tokyo is actually not allowed. There are generally designated smoking areas and only there you are allowed to smoke. So if you come out of a station and you just want to have a cigarette, find those designated smoking areas. You can ask the station staff. Also, if you go just down the streets on a normal street, you're still not allowed to smoke and walk. that's probably another thing as well. There are quite a lot of people. You don't want to bump into people and accidentally burn them. That's a big thing. But also it's just generally for the hygiene and the cleanliness. So if you don't know where to put your cigarette butts, then you were not smoking in the right area, because usually smoking areas have a thing to also dispose of your smoking butts. Many Japanese people who really want to have a smoke, but they can't find a smoking area, actually will go into a cafe, get a quick drink there and smoke in there. In certain cafes in Japan, you are allowed to smoke. However, that rule might change soon. So you might really find out where those smoking areas are. You might not be able to smoke as much as you maybe do. So you might have to learn to cut down a little bit before you come. I mean, you might have to do that anyways for the long plane journey that you're coming with. So just be sure that you find out if you're actually okay to smoke in the area where you're smoking. We have seen a couple of foreigners just standing around like smoking a fag and ditching on the floor. That looks so bad. Just don't do it, please. Also, if you actually get caught smoking in a non-designated smoking area, you will be fined and you have to pay a lot of money. So you don't want to do that, right? 6. Ignore the barriers. When you go on the trains in Japan, especially in Tokyo, there will be little barriers. You have then a ticket or a little card that you put onto a plate and the barriers will open so you can go to the next place. Now, some people, they don't buy the right type of tickets, they didn't put the card down right, and the barriers close and they just walk through the barriers because they're like, well, I'm a foreigner, No, it doesn't work like that, because at the next stop where you leave, it will not show the right amount on your card, or it will not be the right amount for your ticket. So you actually need to protect that. I mean, sometimes people have tried to just get themselves out, talk themselves out, going like, I don't understand. Trying to completely ignore what the station staff is telling them. That might have worked before, but it's definitely not gonna work much longer. So you need to make sure that you got the right ticket and actually put the card, if you have the digital card, right on the plate to open the barriers. My hint, if you come to Tokyo, get yourself either a Suica or a Pasmo card. These are electrical cards. You charge them with a certain amount, and with that amount you can travel around Tokyo. So you don't constantly have to go and get yourself a ticket and then another ticket and another ticket, because sometimes train lines you can't use the same ticket with. Just get yourself a Pasmo or a Suica card, put a good amount of money on it, and travel with that. And if there's something left over of that Suica card when you actually leave Japan, you can still use that Suica card to buy yourself drinks at vending machines or in convenience stores. So there are quite a lot of advantages to that, and you don't get stuck at the barriers. 5. Talking loudly. My American friends generally tell me that they are really noisy and no one really likes that, but it's not just the Americans. I heard it also quite a lot of Japanese people complain about people from other parts of Asia, that they talk too loud or they sound like they talk angrily. You have to think that many Japanese people do actually not speak a secondary language or don't speak it well. So it will be a language that they don't understand. Maybe you're just having a good time, but they don't know why you're so loud and why you're shouting. Everyone in Japan is like a little bit back and holding a little bit, especially in very crowded trains. So especially when you're on the train, try to keep the voice down. See how loud the people around you are talking and just try and match that level. I know it's hard if you're used to a country where everyone is like chatting on the train and having fun and it's a great time. But it's not the same in Japan, and you will stand out negatively if you're the only noisy person on the train. I know, it's a trap. Me and my friends, when you come the first time, you might not realize that at the start that actually your voices are a lot louder than everyone else's on the train. So just try to sometimes just check the area around you and adjust it a little bit. Also, talking on your phone on the train is a big no-go. They will actually say that also in Japanese on the trains. Do not talk on the phone when you're on the train. What you have to do if you get a random call, which is what we all do, is go to the next station and then either call them back, or if you're just at a station, get out of the train, finish the call, and then go back on the train. Number 4, big luggage in rush hour. Rush hour in Tokyo is infamous for how crazy it is. I only recently again saw actually staff members push people in the morning into the train. You don't see it much, but sometimes when it's really extreme, when for example a train is delayed, you will actually see it. It's quite terrifying. And if during those times a foreigner is there with a large suitcase, oh boy, people will dislike you for that. Now, I know that at certain times you can't avoid rush hour, but if you can, especially with big luggage, I will recommend it to you. It is terrible for the people around you. You sometimes will not even be able to go on the train. And it's terrible for you too, because you can't get into it. You might get pushed over it. You don't know how to get in with the suitcase. It's just really, really bad. So for example, how I worked around it is, if I know I need to go to the airport and it will be during rush hour, I see if there's a shuttle bus. So for example, from Shinjuku Station, there are certain shuttle buses that you can book in advance that take you straight to the airport, which will save you having to constantly change, roll that suitcase over people's legs, squish yourself in with the salaryman on their way to work. You really don't want to do that. There are ways to work around it, and it will make people a lot happier if you don't ride with a big suitcase on the crowded trains. T-shirts. This wasn't so much of an issue in recent years, but now, no. This didn't seem to be an issue before, but recently many Japanese people have complained about offensive t-shirts. Before that, it used to be like t-shirts that just said, I'm a gaijin or I'm big in Japan, which is kind of borderline offensive, but there are recently some very offensive t-shirts. Either they have written offensive Japanese on it, or it is anime characters in certain poses. You know, that kind of stuff, kind of slightly sexual poses, or like ahego, all that kind of stuff. That might be funny. You might think you can wear that in Japan. You really can't. Japanese people feel offended with these sexual images on your t-shirt. And I know in certain countries that's kind of cool and edgy if you do that. In Japan, it's really not. Bless you, director. It's just one of those things that is really not, like, since Japanese culture is so modest, and bless you again, and there's no PDA and similar things like that. If you wear something like that on a t-shirt, you look like, I don't want to say scum, what's the word for it? You just look like a bad person that they wouldn't want to hang out with, that kind of, it makes you look really bad. So try to avoid those t-shirts. If you don't know what's actually written on your t-shirt, maybe you shouldn't be wearing it anyways. And it's great to show the support of your favorite anime character, but make sure that she's dressed and not in some sexual poses if you do that. But generally, like, wearing anime t-shirts in Japan, only super, like, otaku people will wear it. You don't really see it that much, like, to be honest. Complaining about not being able to use a credit card. I know having a credit card is great, it's so convenient, but many stores in Japan will not accept a credit card. Actually, stores that I sometimes go to every week will still not accept credit card. And of course, I wonder why they haven't changed it in the meantime, but I don't complain about it. Don't be one of those tourists who complains about not being able to use a credit card. You know this now, you know this in advance, so be sure that you always have some extra spare cash with you when you go there. If you can use your credit card, great! If you can't, don't complain about it. Very simple rule. Also, I mentioned the electronic cards before, with which you can go through the barriers, right? You can use them to pay for other things. So charge them up with a little bit of extra cash, and you might be able to actually use the electronic card instead of a credit card. So you have 3 ways of actually spending your money. Number 1, sneaky pictures. Sneaky pictures are one of the things most Japanese people hate so much. What I mean is taking pictures of other people without their permission. Non-consensual photographs are a big no in Japan. It's actually a thing that you're really not allowed to do either. People are very protective of their image. Some people will never ever put even a picture of them up on social media. Some people have Twitter accounts where they constantly just blur out their faces. Some people will never put their face on their Facebook accounts either. So you can't just go take a picture of a Japanese person. It doesn't work like that. If they dressed in something outrageous, something flashy, don't do it. If they dressed like a geisha, don't do it either. You're not allowed to do that. There's been a thing that recently in the media, there was a young geisha going down the streets in Kyoto, and she got harassed by people trying to take pictures of her or with her so much that she couldn't go down the street. And Japanese people were absolutely shocked by the behavior of the foreigners, of the tourists who did that. You don't want to be one of them. If you see a Japanese person who you think is very interesting and you really want to have a picture with them, you need to just go up and ask them. That is like the human thing to do. You don't just go and take pictures of people without their permission. So just go up and say, 写真いいですか? Or just go, フォト OK? If you really can't speak any Japanese, and they will say yes or no at that point in time. And that's all you have to do. It's not rocket science, but it's one of the things that me, the director of Japanese, dislike the most, that many tourists do. Other people, they're not your property. And even if they're dressed up really nicely, they're still not your property. So you can't treat them like that. Always be nice, be polite, ask if you can take a picture. Hey, and if you ask, they will actually strike a pose for you. They will put an extra accessory in. There are loads and loads of benefits to that. So just respect people. We had foreigners who didn't respect that. They would interrupt our shootings. They would not go away when we told them to. It is crazy. Sometimes I'm just surprised how rude people are, and you don't want to be one of them. So this is one of the things that foreigners and Japanese people hate the most about tourists when they come to Japan. Those were 10 things you should never do when you come to Japan. Now you're informed and you know more. Don't forget to push the like button, and if you're new, we bring more information about Japan out to you, so don't forget to subscribe for more content here from Japan, Tokyo, coming out to you. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you soon for more stuff on Ask Japanese. Bye!